Welcome to the Fourth Tavern, a Wheel of Time podcast. My name is Justin, and I'm your host for this episode where we will be talking about The Eye of the World, chapters 45 through 59. No, 49. Get a little ahead of myself. But yeah, we'll be talking about where we last left off in these book reviews. And our heroes were stuck in the ways, and we're going to find out what happened. Did they escape? Did they get out? We don't know. But first I want to introduce my fellow Taviran, Mark and Kyle. Welcome back to the show. Good to have you guys here. Appreciate your knowledge, your expertise. You guys are true Taviran and affect the world around you. And
we reshape the pattern around us. That's how we do it.
Absolutely.
But yeah, we've been looking forward to getting back together. It's been a bit. If you're listening to this chronologically in the future, it doesn't matter because you just skip to the next episode, but it has been a little bit since we recorded last. Life gets in the way. Not in the way, just, life happens and you got to live it. So we're back. Our enjoyment of the Wheel of Time book series has not dissipated, and it's still something we're very passionate about, so we're glad to be here again. But yeah, chapters 45 through 49. As far as the heroes go, they are in the ways. They're trying to find a way to Fal Dara to meet up with the people there, because their ultimate goal is the Eye of the World, which is a little bit further past Fal Dara, so they're trying to get there. But while they're in the ways, they have some problems. It's dark. The Machin Shin, the black wind is there, so they got to be careful of that. Trollocs are there. And they don't run into any this time, but at least at this point, but they're not there, but they're aware of them. So they're trying to get there. They escape through the ways, come out the other side, chased by Machin Shin, and barely escape alive, and then make their way to Fal Dara, which is in the Borderlands in the north part of the land. And they meet up with, first of all, they meet up with Ingtar and a bunch of others who welcome Lan. Call him Daishan, ask him if he's going to raise the golden crane, and you're like, what's all this? This sounds interesting, but they get into it a little bit later, and so will we. But then they meet up with the Lord there, Lord Algomar, and kind of have a reunion. He volunteers to help them, send men to the Blight with them to help locate the Green Man, but Moraine and Lan, they decline, say more men will just cause more problems. Won't help us reach our goal because we'll just end up fighting and we'll lose. And so they decline that. And the Fal Darans are preparing to attack or to make a move to Tarwin's Gap, which is north, but kind of more northeast. I guess there's a big Trolloc camp that's coming. That's one of the passes that they use to attack the Borderlands. And so they're sending the majority of their army, well, pretty much all their army there to fight the Trollocs and the Murdral. And so Moraine and her group take off to the Blight, a little bit different direction, and end up having some troubles in the Blight, but are able to escape it, and they end up meeting up with the Green Man. And that's where we'll stop today for this episode, and then we'll continue on to the last few chapters in our next episode. But that's kind of the stage of where we're at and kind of what we'll be talking about for the next little bit. One of my things that I really have liked about this book series is the ways. So every time they go back to the ways, I'm like, oh yeah, they're back. Because it's spooky, it's dark, it's got this weird otherworldly feel, and you just don't know. They just say it was created by the Aes Sedai in the Age of Legends. And it's like, oh, how did I, you have all these questions and you don't really get any answers, but it's a cool place. So I'm glad we get to talk a bit more about it. But as far as these chapters go, what are some of your guys' favorite parts that we'll be talking about today, Mark? What's some of yours?
Oh, I mean, there's a lot in this, right? There's it's a pretty quick read. I think you can read the 45 to 49 in like an hour, right? Mm-hmm. It's not that big of a read. I think one of my favorite parts is when they get to Fal Dara, and we do hear about Lan. We do hear like a little bit more about him. We hear some history just kind of along that storyline where he came from, why he is how he is, right? Because up until now, I mean, he's this warder guy that's this strong brute, silent type who's weirdly in love with the wisdom.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a little mysterious there, and then we get a little bit into why. And I really like that kind of learning. I enjoy hearing backstory. I enjoy hearing backstory that makes sense, and that really ties into the world. Because I mean, this is something that follows Lan till the end of the book. I mean, you hear when they're reading, they talk about golden crane. Will the golden crane fly? And then was it the second to last book? It ends. And like they're all crying because the golden crane flies again, right? And so I guess that was like the 13th book or something. But anyways, and so it's pretty cool. This is where it started, and I'd forgot it started all in book 1. I remembered we read about it, but I didn't remember where. And I was like, oh yeah. So really cool. That's easily my favorite part, and the introduction of Ingtar. I mean, he's right there too. And we were talking about this earlier, but Ingtar is my favorite non-main character of anybody. I mean, you take Matt, Perrin, Lan, that whole group. Nynaeve, Egwene. You delete them from the book. Who's your favorite? Ingtar, number 1, every day.
Yeah, nice.
So
this is his introduction chapter, right?
Yes, yeah. So definitely my favorite chapter. Definitely my favorite stuff to read.
Cool. Yeah, I like the Borderlands. It's kind of got this military feel, and their honor and all that stuff is really, I really like it too. So. What about for you, Kyle?
No, honestly, it's similar, right? It's when they get there and they start meeting the Borderland characters and just the rich heritage and history that they have of defending, what we know of the world so far against the encroachment of the Blight and everything else like that. And to your point, Justin, the honor and the history and the legacy that they have is fantastic. And it's similar to you, Mark. I love Ingtar and his arc in the story, and he's definitely going to be a part of future conversations. And he's a fantastic character and with a lot of depth. Interestingly, and so very similar.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, so the Ways, they start out there, and we get a pretty cool part. One thing I like about book 1 is when the Emond's Field 5 is what they call them. Nynaeve, Mats, Egwene, Rand, Perrin, the main core characters. Whenever they're together, and there's not a lot of, they have this downtime. You get to see, they joke with each other, kind of bag on each other here and there, and make fun of each other. Nynaeve's always bossing them around. They're like, you're just a wisdom. We don't have to listen to you. You're not the wisdom anymore. So you get this kind of camaraderie whenever they're together in these quiet moments. And we have one of those here. And I just want to talk about that a little bit because it is one of my favorite parts in these chapters is they're getting ready they have to sleep, spend the night in the Ways, and they're kind of getting ready to get their beds ready and stuff. And I can't remember. I think it's Matt, of course. He's like, remember when you danced with the tinker and you said it was the best thing ever? And Rand's like, what? I didn't hear about this. Egwene's like, oh, I'm going to bed. Never mind.
Right.
So she tries to get out, but then
didn't you say like dance like a bird?
Yeah.
And,
she gets all embarrassed.
Yeah.
And then
funny.
Someone else says, well, was it Elsie?
Yeah.
Like, well, Elsie was looking at you pretty strong there, Rand. And
well, they were talking about Min.
Oh, yeah, Min. It was
she
Min.
was good looking. She had short hair.
Yeah, she was always watching you. And Egwene's like, who's Min? And then they brought up Elsie Grinwald, and they're like, so it was just funny. They were just kind of joking around and stuff. And then I think at the end, Egwene's like, I didn't really like dancing with him as much.
Yeah, you got to smooth that over.
Yeah.
You gotta,
Yeah. So,
I just think it's hilarious that they all poke fun at each other, saying, "Oh, you dance with so and so," but they all think that everybody else is the expert on women, right?
Oh yeah, if only I knew as much as Perrin did.
Right, exactly.
Like, and Perrin doesn't know nothing.
Right.
I mean, I've seen his relationships. He doesn't know a thing. I'll say that right now.
Yeah. Yeah, so that was good. I like that. Because then I think that's one of their last moments together, really, to like have that type of conversations. Because from here on out, it's just they're getting chased.
Changes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then at the end of this book, everything's different. So it was kind of good to see that. But I think it was Lan. He's like, someone's following us. Or maybe it was Loyal, but someone's following us. They didn't know who it was, but it's kind of like Gollum following Frodo, and it's like someone's back there. We don't know who it is. It's kind of that kind of feel. But they don't know who it is. But then the next day they start going, and then they realize Machin Shins. They hear a wind, and they're like, "Oh crap, we got to get out of here!" Because what happens if you get caught by Machin Shin?
You die, you go mad, you never see it again,
You
right?
lose your mind.
It just sucks everything that's good about you out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we don't really know what it is, right? The book never explains it. You can read the white book. It doesn't explain it. Like, nobody knows where it came from. No one knows exactly what it does or why it exists. It just does.
Yeah.
And so what they do know is if you get caught by it, you're dead man. Or you're going to come out at best mad and crazy. So
or brain dead.
Yeah.
Can't feed yourself.
Exactly.
Yeah, bad news. And they speculated that maybe it's since the ways were created by saidin. Saidin's tainted, so maybe it got formed somehow that way. But like you said, they don't really know. Mm-hmm. And I noticed that Moraine, when she was trying to use the power, and she said that even the taint from saidin is affecting her use of saidar.
Yeah,
it was that powerful in the ways that it turned. Her power outside of the ways is like a bright light, but in the ways it's like a dull yellow. And then she just feels like if I use it, I'm going to be tainted as well. Mm-hmm. It's that pervasive and that powerful.
I've always thought, because the ways were created, right? The seeds were to create the ways were created by the Aes Sedai. But to grow them, it was grown by the Ogier.
Yeah,
right.
So I always thought it had to do with the longing.
Okay.
That's why I always felt like, well, because all the steading are spread out and lost and they don't know where they all are and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I always felt that was connected because the Ogier connected the steading, the Ogier created the ways, and as the longing started killing off the Ogier and they became less connected to the world and things like that, that's what started it.
Yeah.
And that would make sense because the longing didn't start until the breaking of the world, right?
Yeah, like after the breaking.
Right, after the breaking. Right, exactly.
And then during that time, they were looking for the steading. They couldn't find them.
Right.
And then somewhere around the War of 100 Years is when it occurred. And that's when, about the time, I think, the Ogier started settling all their stuff again.
Yeah. Maybe it's a combination of them both, like the fact that it was created in saidin and therefore is tainted, right? Mm-hmm. And then with the longing and the Ogier being absent and having to be absent for longer periods of time, right? It kind of results in that, the state that the ways are in now, because they used to be stunningly beautiful.
Oh yeah,
right?
Yeah.
It never got dark. There's grass and trees and fruits.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they talked about you could eat fruit and take a rest, and no one actually knew how large it was, and so who knows though? We don't know. I don't think it ever actually says anywhere. It doesn't matter. Yeah. I always thought, well, if the corruption existed with Machin Shin and the saidin, saidin, it would start healing itself now after book 6 or 7.
Yeah.
Because Machin Shin's no longer in the ways.
Yep.
Spoiler alert.
There will be spoilers in this
spoiler
episode.
alert. Spoiler alert.
But I always assumed, they'll just start getting better. But we never know. We never hear. Who knows?
Yeah, I would agree with that hypothesis. I think it's a good theory. There was a chapter written by Brandon Sanderson for the last book that ended up getting cut just because the time frames didn't work out, where Perrin and Ruark and a bunch of Ogier fighters travel the ways to make it to the last battle in time. And when they're in there, it's still dark. It's still that way. It hasn't healed itself. But maybe that's just, it takes time or something. But there wasn't an immediate effect.
I see.
But
okay,
that's not canon. So maybe that's not the case. But I do once saidin got healed, and why not?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and they used the Terran
Durangriel.
to create the doorways to the ways.
Yeah, those little Avendesora leaves looking things, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I forget what they were called. I think they're in the white book somewhere, but yeah, so they were able to use that because those things, you don't have to use the one, you have to have access to the one power to use the one power, as opposed to Sangreal and Angreal. So anyway, the ways. They wake up, they start their way back and they have to take another route. But then Machin Shins come, so they have to start running. They make it to the door, and the Avendesora leaf on the inside is gone. So I wonder if that was like sabotage or just got lost over time. But interesting, Moraine had to use the one power to break open the door, and everybody escaped just in time and escaped Machin Shin. Mm-hmm. And then, so from there, they made their way to Fal Dara, and on the way, all the farmhouses were empty, so they know something's up, something's wrong. But then when they arrive at Fal Dara, they realize that everyone has kind of gravitated toward Fal Dara for this last battle thing. Mm-hmm. So when they arrive, I'm gonna kind of let you talk about it, Mark. About everyone knows Lan. Right?
Yeah.
That was when I first read. I was like, "Oh, he's like a hero, or who is he?"
Mm-hmm.
So he's not just a warder that follows Moraine around.
Yeah. He gets there immediately. You start hearing like Daishan, the golden crane. Will the golden crane fly? Right. And a couple things here, right? These people truly believe that this is close to the last battle, right? Because that's when the golden crane will fly again. Mm-hmm. So they truly believe that this is it. And so that's kind of crazy. That kind of gives you the mood that they're going to. They're going to a city not like of, we're gearing up for another battle. We're gearing up and we're probably all going to die.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of a heavy thing. They talk about it a little bit, but I don't feel like they really said it very well with the the surrounding feel of it. Mm-hmm. So that's pretty neat. We find out Daishan means a battle lord, right? And they talk about that a little bit. I think Ingtar's the one that kind of gives the rundown on that, and same with Moraine a little bit later. And basically we find out Lan is a king, mm-hmm. right? There's an old country called Ogier, and it was overrun by the Shadow through deception and, all sorts of craziness things. Like I don't even think like when you read in the book and you read in the white book, it sounds like a lot of things happen that we don't read about. Right? We hear some big names like Isam. Yeah. We hear some,
Let's talk about that whole those connections. So it was Lan's dad, Ogier Mandragoran, and his wife. They had a son, Lan. But then Ogier had a brother, Lane Mandragoran, and his wife. And their son was Isam.
Is his wife Corwin? Is that who it is? Corwin?
I think Corwin was the guy.
Other lord that tried to... Okay.
Yeah. So Lane and his wife were like, we got to go attack Sheol Ghul. We got to end this. So they gather a bunch of people. Ogier, the king, doesn't want to do that, but they do it anyway, and Lane ends up getting killed with all the people. So then his wife teams up with Cohen. Is it Corwin or Cohen?
Yeah, something like that.
Cohen.
Cowin.
Okay. Right? Yeah.
Cohen Fair something.
Yeah, something different to the other, yeah. And they team up and
try to overthrow.
Yeah, they basically try a coup, it sounds like, right? So like they had a vote for king, and Ogier only won by 2 votes. Mm-hmm. Right? That's it. I mean, that's how popular this guy was. And so instead of taking his loss, he basically attacks the 7 towers, right? Mm-hmm. And there's, big old fight, and they get put down. Needless to say, Shadow overruns, because they lost all those men. Right. Shadows come in. The Shadow comes in, kills everybody. Before he die, Ogier and his wife bring in Lan and anoint him
as the king.
Yeah, they use something, Daishan, like a, anointed battle lord or something like that, and give him, king, and then send him on his way. They give him a bunch of bodyguards and say, keep him safe.
He gave him the sword, the ring.
Yep. And the Ring of Bahir. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. And so, and then, he leaves. He barely survives the journey. I think there's 5 of his bodyguards survived.
Yeah.
His parents die. And then, is it Jane Farstrider kills Corwin? Corwin, right?
I don't know. I think Alakir and Corwin duel before the attack.
And he beats him in 1-on-1. Who did Jane Farstrider kill?
He was involved somehow. I think he brought Cohen in for justice.
Maybe that's what it is.
Oh, yeah. That would make
is
sense.
Right. And so, anyway, so he gets involved in that, which was pretty cool. That'll, come up a lot later.
Yeah.
But it's pretty cool. And
then Lane and his wife's son, Lane's wife and her son Isam, they escape. They try to escape.
Mm-hmm.
But in this book, it just says they got killed.
Yeah, it says they got ran down by the Trollocs and assumed dead.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So we will never hear from them again.
Yeah. We'll talk more about that. In book 5.
But there's this guy named Lord Luke. Anyway, so pretty cool storyline. We kind of learn Fal Dara it's basically a fortress town on the edge of the border. It's like the main town to defend what's called Tarwin's Gap. It's where, if the Trollocs sort of flood in, they've got to come through this gap. We learn that it's ran by the Agomar, Lord Agomar. And Agomar is actually a really interesting character. We don't learn too much about him now, but he has a huge role to play later. In the White Book and through other things, we find out he's one of the great captains. He was almost selected to lead the war against the Aiel War. The Aiel War by himself, but then through politics, right, they had to share it. But there's a reason, he was almost picked. He's a freaking awesome general.
5 great captains? Is that what it is?
Yeah, I think
7?
I think there's 5.
5.
Right?
5.
And so he's one of them. I don't know if that means he's the best, but he's freaking awesome.
Yeah, he's top. He's good.
He wouldn't die in a Trolloc attack in Tarwin's Gap, right?
What?
That's ludicrous, right?
Yeah,
he wouldn't. Yeah.
No.
Just gotta clarify that.
Doesn't die.
No.
Nothing. But he's awesome. So, but we get to meet him and kind of his culture and who he is and understand kind of where him and Lan sit. They respect each other as equals. And I think that's what's interesting here is like if you take anything from this to understand who Lan is a Lord Agomar, the leader of Fal Dara, the first defense against Trolloc incursion, right? Great captain, almost led to everything, treats Lan as an equal. And I think that if you take anything from this, take that, because that's important to who Lan is going forward.
Yeah. And I think in reading this, I noticed that Algomar, we had the Rand Matt Perrin, and he kept looking at him like, who are these guys? These farm boys. And eventually it came out that they're the reason why they're going to the Eye of the World. And Algomar was like, what? These guys? They're the heroes? And he kept kind of trying to cast doubt on who they were and what. So I thought that was interesting that he was downplaying who they were, like he knew something, or he just didn't respect who they were because they were new. I don't know. Do you guys have any thoughts on that? Because Algomar's not a dark friend, right?
No.
At this point.
Well, he is.
Oh, ever.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of discussion about that. But anyways, I feel like he just looks at him, right? And he says, well, you got one new warrior here. He can kind of understand, like
maybe two.
Yeah, you can see how Rand walks. He's
right.
I think he's a sword master, right? Agomar's a sword master too. He can tell how he's a good. Like maybe 2 looks at Perrin. Matt, who's probably legitimately the best warrior in the freaking world, is overlooked completely, like he is for the first 3 books.
Yeah.
He shakes him off, and I think it was part because he looked at him and saw like, okay, like these guys are new. She's going to Eye of the World during the end of times. Like, what is this? But furthermore, I don't think he wanted to believe what that could mean, because later when she tells him like, no, I'll be going there with these 3, not the women.
Yeah.
And then he's like, is it that time? Are we really here? Like, and then he understands where they're at, why she would take him. And I think that was important too. Like, I think at first he just didn't want to believe, like, no, we're not there yet. And then it's like, we are.
I think it's a classic case of expectations, right? And so to your point, like when he learns that they are going to the eye of the world, right? And then he still kind of, this really makes sense, right? You put yourself in Lord Agelmar's shoes, and what going to the eye of the world means, right? And you wouldn't think that it's going to be 3 farm boys, right? That are going to be that important, right?
Yeah.
Or that pivotal, and so to that end, you can kind of understand, first of all, the dismissal at first, right? But when he learns that, the confusion, right? And so,
because there was a lot of back and forth between him and Moraine, like, hey, I'll send guys with you. You don't want 100 guys, I'll send 10.
right.
And
You don't want 10, I'll send 3.
yeah,
Like,
I'll replace these 3 farm boys with 3 good warriors. And so he kept trying to convince her, hey, you got to bring more people than what you're getting. You're going to fail.
Right.
And she just kept saying, nope. Until finally he got it. And then even Ingtar, when he escorted him to the edge, he was like, I really thought I was going with you guys, but
yeah.
Algamar told me not to, so I guess not.
Right.
Now I'm going to be late to the battle.
Yeah.
Right? This fool.
Yeah. So that was interesting. So I guess he knew what that meant. Like going to the eye of the world, that it was the end, the last battle.
Which is weird. I'm going to have to reread because I didn't think anybody knew what was in the eye of the world. Obviously, she did, which means some people did. Lord Agelmar obviously did, and maybe most of the Aes Sedai did it then. Who knows? They didn't know, I didn't think, everything it may or may not contain.
Right.
Which we'll find out next time.
Next
Right.
episode.
But...
It's kind of a sign of the times kind of a thing.
Yeah,
Right.
but I didn't think that that was common knowledge. If you go to the Eye of the World, there's going to be this great pool of slime and, X, Y, and Z. But then he knows.
But
Right.
there's been other people that have gone to the eye of the world.
Yeah, but, I mean, do they go and... The
No,
Green
they
Man's
go to-
like, hello, welcome. Are you the
Yeah.
one that's going to go to the Eye of the World?
That's a
Right.
good point. They
Right.
go to find the Green Man,
Yeah.
Right.
and then they're done. Where these guys were going to find the Green Man to go to the eye of the world.
Right.
So another step.
Right. And we'll talk about kind of how the Green Man, how they get there. But I think that plays a role into them actually getting to the eye of the world, is why they, first of all, how they got to the Green Man, and then why they were going to the Green Man. And so.
Yeah. Okay. So while they're there, someone shows up, one of our old buddies from the beginning of the book, Padan Fain. They're in there talking, and then Ingtar comes in and says, hey, some guy tried to enter in, and he ran off. Now he's climbing the walls. And Algamar's like, what? Go get him. So they bring him in, and he's just kind of out of his mind. We find out that he was the one that was in the Ways following them. And now he's here, and he's just babbling, saying, first he's like, the Dark One made me do it. I'm so sorry. And then he's like, oh, you guys are going to suffer. He kind of goes back and forth what he's talking about. So he's just all over the place. But so far, Padan Fain, we find out that he was captured he was a Dark Friend. And then he was sent to Shea El Ghul to meet, he said the Balzaman. And Balzaman kind of gives him a special mission to track down what ended up being Rand and Matt and Perrin into Two Rivers. Right. So he has all that exposure. They did something to him while he was there, and he's like he's like the uber Dark Friend now. And then he goes to Shadar Logoth, gets caught by Mashadar, and has that evil within him. And then he goes to the Ways and gets caught by Machin Shin and has that evil.
Which are all different evils.
Yeah, they're all different evils.
I mean, every single one, like basically one's pure greed, right? One is the Dark One's taint, whatever, he brings it. And the other one is like loss, misery, and all that stuff, right? And suffering. So like they're all evil, right? But they're all different corners of evil, which is when you break it down into stuff. Makes sense.
Dude can't catch a break.
No,
Yeah.
no.
Kind of feel bad for him. A little bit, I guess. I don't know.
This is the Padan Fain Apologist Club.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Everyone deserves redemption.
It's going to be much harder to do that later.
yeah. So he's a bad dude, right? You would think he would be like at the level of Forsaken almost,
I think
without the knowledge of the Age of Legends.
I think by the end, and I'm not talking last book, like at the end. I'm
Right.
talking pre that last book, you know, he was, I think he could take a Forsaken.
Oh,
I don't know if he could take like Moradin or Ishmael or, you know, but I think he could take like I think he could take most of them.
Especially Asmodean. Right?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he could take Asmodean. I think he could take Grendel. I think he could take most of them. I mean, take maybe like Ishmael, Agenor, Bothmel, and what's her name out?
Lanfear?
Lanfear out.
Moby Dick?
Dude,
I think he
Lanfear?
takes.
You could take Lanfear?
I know. I think he couldn't.
Oh, okay.
But
okay,
I think
okay.
besides those four,
okay.
he could take the rest out.
Yeah.
There wasn't ever a confrontation between him and a Forsaken, right?
No, and it talked about that they kind of kept clear of him. They were aware of him, but they were told to keep clear of him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I wish he would have had more to do. Like, because he'll just pop up and be like, with his dagger, you know, and then they run away. And then we don't see him for a while.
Right.
then he shows up again.
He shows
right?
up
Like,
again, just randomly. So I wish he would have had like a, kind of like how in Star Wars with Darth Maul, when he comes back to life, he like forms this shadow collective of all these gangsters and bad guys, and he's the leader, and they start attacking the heroes. So I'm wondering, it would have been nice if he would have like formed a group and been a major player in this whole last battle thing.
Yeah.
Who was that Fade that?
The Shadar Haran or something like that.
Yeah, you know what I'm
Yes,
talking
yeah,
about.
uh-huh.
I always thought because he was like ordering everyone around.
Right.
I always thought that those two were gonna toss down.
That would have been interesting.
Yeah.
That would have been really interesting.
So.
Now I want to talk about that fade. We can't do that yet.
I know.
Can't do that.
In 9 books, we will be back.
So Padan Fain, and they just keep him there, and then he shows up the next book. So then, anything else happen while they're there? Anything else you guys want to talk about with Fal Dara while they're there?
I mean, I think one thing that is skipped over really quick is that they caught a bunch of people trying to cut down like a little horse fence or something to
yeah.
allow. And it was really quick. It was really like, oh, we caught 4 guys trying to do this, and then the people tore them apart. The end. Like, you know, I think that's important because here's this society that is literally bent and grown on keeping the shadow out, and you had a group of people trying to
Dark friends.
dark friends trying to let them in. So I think that's important. That's important for future reference, but it also goes to show that even in, you know, dark friends are everywhere. They have no nation. They have no, you know, loyalties. You know, Moraine says that numerous times throughout, and I think that's important here.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think it's also important. You can see, you know, Padan Fain try to start driving a wedge between Moraine and Lord Algalmar, or I would say the Aes Sedai and Lord Algalmar, saying, "Hey, you know, I know your mission is to, you know, get rid of the Blight, you know, you know, keep the shadow back, defeat the Dark One, kind of a thing. I can teach you how to do
Yeah,
that
he does say that.
without having to get involved with the Aes Sedai, right? Because you know the Aes Sedai, it's always mysterious, and you never know what's, you know, it's always a pain, right? And so obviously Moraine, you know, cuts him off really quick, and then they move on, right? But you can see how he starts to try to exert his influence over the Aes Sedai, or over, you know, people believing the Aes Sedai.
Yeah. It's funny. Algamar's come back to that. He's like, I don't know what a peddler can teach me. I've been here for fighting Trollocs forever. I know what I'm doing.
Right. Right.
I don't know what a peddler's going to teach me.
Yep.
So, anyway, so the next day, they, like I said, Ingtar escorts him to the edge, the towers, the watchtowers. And when he has that conversation, like, I was just informed that I'm not going to be able to go with you, but me and my 100 men have to go to Tarwin's Gap, and they kind of take off, hoping to get there in time. and they enter the outskirts of the Blight, not necessarily the Blight itself yet. And they travel. So Kyle, do you want to kind of talk about the Blight?
Yeah, so
that's all about. What
I think this is the first time in the books we get a sense of what the Blight is and what it looks like and what it's like to experience, right? Yeah. So the Blight is interesting. It's definitely represented as a physical thing in the books at this point, right? And it definitely is, right? But it's a result. I think you learn this a little bit later, but it's a result of the Dark One exerting his influence over the world, right? Mm-hmm. And the reason it's growing is because the Dark One is, the layer between the Dark One's influence and the real world is shrinking.
The seals are breaking.
Right? He's gaining more influence, right? And so this concept of reality, of true reality, is warping, right? And so all these things that are good and great and normal are now turned into terrible, awful things, right? And it's interesting, right? So they drop him off there, and it's obviously warm, right? Mm-hmm. The temperature, the climate is warm and dry, and is it dry or is it humid?
I think it's humid.
I think it's humid, right? Yeah. And so they drop him off there. It's humid. It's dry. It's humid, warm. But the closer you get to Shale Ghul, it gets colder. Right?
Yeah.
Right? And so it's just another weird, interesting, representation that the climate in the Blight doesn't make sense. Right? Mm-hmm. And just an illustration of the Dark One's influence, right? It's the thinking that, the closer you get to the source, you think it would get hotter and worse. But no, it gets colder, right? So anyways, there's a lot of interesting things in the Blight, right? You've got, as they start going in and explore and, trying to get to where they want to go, to the Eye of the World, right? People are just disgusted. The people in the band are like, oh, this is great. Loyal is obviously really sad. Matt retches multiple times, right? Yeah. And I think Rand who tries to reach out and touch a tree, yeah, right? And is slapped back and said, don't even do that, right? And do we learn about sticks here?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah.
That's when they talk about the sticks.
The sticks. And so I was curious, Mark, what was your favorite monster in the Blight?
Oh man, from this scene?
From this scene, and I know we'll talk about some more here in a bit, but if you could pick your one monster in the Blight, Trollocs aside, what would it
be? Probably the worms, because we never ever see them again.
Yeah.
They're super fearsome, they're super dangerous.
Right.
Apparently these were the only ones that ever existed. And so they were pretty cool. I actually like the worms, how, I don't know, maybe it's because I like Dune. Right. And I kind of got a Dune-ish feel out of it. I'm like, oh man, it's like Dune.
Right.
And so those are pretty cool. Probably the most interesting, another one that we never really see again, are, I don't even know what they are, deformed Trollocs.
Yeah.
I don't know what they are, right? I mean, it doesn't really say what they are, if they're animals that have been deformed or just gross or whatever they are, but those were pretty cool.
Oh, yeah. And the interesting thing... Oh, sorry, go ahead, Justin.
I was going to say the sea monster in the seven...
Oh, that's right.
The lakes there.
Oh, yeah.
Kind of creepy. They're I think one of the comments was that hands on the end of his tentacles?
Right. And the interesting thing is, so a little bit of history here, right? All these creatures in the Blight were created during the War of Power, right?
Oh, by Agenor?
By Agenor,
right? Oh, yeah, it makes sense.
And so, you have these weird things, is that hands on the end of his tentacles? Or, I mean, just the way that the Trollocs are formed, too. They look like different pieces of different things slammed together, right?
Because that's what he was trying to do.
Because that's what he was trying to do, right?
Like a super biological guy, yeah.
Right, exactly. And so all these things were kind of created through experimentation.
I never thought of that. I guess I never put that together. I know all about Agenor. I know what he does. He created the Trollocs and
right.
blah, blah, blah. But I never thought, he created all this stuff out here. But now I'm like, oh, yeah, that makes sense.
So I wonder, how much of these were, failed experiments, right? In trying to create a Trolloc, right? I wouldn't say the worms are failed, right? But the sea monster and, the sticks and other terrible things. Anyway, the Blight's a creepy place,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Full of, we'll say, failed experiments, toxic trees. It's basically trying to kill you every step you take.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh yeah.
And so, they get further into the Blight, and eventually they have to stop and sleep, right? And so, and it's here that Rand, starts dreaming again, right? And starts having, Moraine obviously kind of warns him again about the danger of dreams and everything else like that. And it gets pretty urgent. And so, anyways, Justin, I don't want to take your summary here, but
Go ahead.
Once essentially Rand wakes up and they get further in, they encounter the worms, they start they encounter the sea monster, and things are getting really bad, right? Mm-hmm. Which kind of starts to, I would say, encourage that need, right? And the place where they want to go, right, really only appears when they're in desperate need, right? Or when they need to get there. And we're talking about the Green Man here, and kind of where that place is, right? So I was kind of curious how that works, right? I know you have the Green Man, right? And we'll talk about him, but the fact that you can really only get there if you need to, right? Does that mean that it's only accessible in the Blight? Or up there? Or could you get to the Green Man somewhere else if you really needed to?
That's a good question. And I will tell you what it says.
Oh, nice. I need to get the white book.
Yeah. So they were trying to get past the Mountains of Doom on the other side, because that's where they had normally seen it. But for this time, it shows up on the where they're at.
Exactly.
The southern side of the Mountains of Doom.
Right. Mm-hmm. And so that's what got me asking the question, it moved.
Yeah.
Right? So could it move more?
Well, it moves all the time.
Right.
But the major location, I guess, moved as well.
Well,
right.
The way it explains it is it doesn't move. The people that need it are in different places. So this is what it says. I'm going to read this. The White Book. If you don't know what it is, get it.
It's the Bible.
Yes. World of Robert Jordan, The Wheel of Time, by Robert Jordan and Teresa Patterson. It's freaking awesome. It's really like a collection of
in-universe stuff.
In-universe stuff.
Biographies, histories.
Yeah.
And it's cool. It talks about, the Forsaken and who they are and where they come from. We're going to read about some of the Forsaken in a minute. But it doesn't give you a whole lot of context. This will give you a little bit more context. Who they are, where they come from, why they are what they are.
Right.
Anyway, so this is what it says. Blah, blah, blah. Okay. All that was known about the Eye was that it was a great object of the power hidden somewhere deep within the Blight, guarded only by the Green Man within his enchanted grove. It is said to await those whose need was great enough. Among the legends of the grove, one said that no one would be able to find it twice, for it was constantly moving. Those few who have been there say that it is not the place that moves, but rather the location of the person who needs it. Yeah. Which sounds like the same thing, but apparently it's not.
No.
So it doesn't move. It remains constant. Right. Just the location of the person who's actually looking for it and needing it changes.
So is it there everywhere?
Yeah, so it must exist inside and outside of the pattern. Right? If you can't find it in the same place.
Oh, interesting.
Right? Mm-hmm. So and I don't think it's necessarily need. I think if someone went looking for it and they needed to find glory, they would never find it.
Right.
But if they needed to find something deep within themselves to make themselves better or help the world in some place,
right,
then they would find it, and then they would get the wisdom, whatever the Green Man had to offer. I have no idea what people found when they found the Green Man, but I'm sure he didn't just give him a high five and send him on his way, right? I'm sure he gave.
You found me, good job.
You found Waldo. Who's
Here's
Waldo?
Your prize.
You know what I mean? You'll find out in the 7th turning.
Yeah.
But you know what I mean? So. Then it goes on. Then it goes to say we'll talk about that part later.
Okay.
But so that's the answer. It doesn't necessarily move. So I think it just exists right outside the pattern and exists.
That's interesting that you bring that up, because when I was reading it this last time, it said, it depends on their need. The need. And that reminded me of Teleron Rioid when Egwene, when she first starts to learn how to navigate it, she was like, I have to go where the need is, or even Perrin. They were both big dreamers. What's my need? And so they would find out where to go based on their need, and then they would be transported there. So is the Green Man in the world of dreams, or is they're related somehow, or not really, just happens to have the same concepts?
I wouldn't be surprised if so, and this is why. He was told to guard it, right? It was done, if I remember right, after the War of Power, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And so anybody that would, like, they knew they weren't going to be alive to protect what was in it. So, and I think they also know that no one would continue to be alive that would remember even what Tel Arin Riot is.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So it was the perfect place, right? It's a place that's outside the pattern, but still in the pattern, that people could only access with super need and couldn't access it just because they knew how. Like, it would be like you would either have to go there knowing what you needed and knowing what it contained, or you would go there because you need something else, in which case it was still safe, but still findable.
So would that then imply that, when they do get to the Green Man, that they go, if it isn't Tel Arin Riad, right, that they go there in the flesh, right? Kind of, because they're not asleep, right, when they go in
They
there,
are,
right?
if it is the case, they're in there in the flesh.
They're in there in the flesh, which is dangerous.
Super dangerous.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. Maybe as we keep reading and we read about the dream world, I'll pay attention to see if there's any correlations there.
Interesting.
So, okay. So they find the Green Man.
Yeah.
And he's a Nim. That's what their thing is called. They're not a race, right? They're a creation.
Their creation.
Yep. They were created during the Age of Legends. So before the war, through the power to make things grow.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, help things like that.
I think they could use the power even to help things grow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
That was limited to that, but they could.
And then the Ogier could supplement them because the Ogier could sing and stuff like that. So it was almost like they worked really in tandem together.
Yeah, it says they are a living construct that could use the one power for the benefit of plants and growing things. The Nim, Ogier, and Daishan Aiel worked together as a team, focusing the one power to ensure perfect growth for every field they sang. Sun crops were immune to blight and impervious to insects in the Age of Legends.
Well, there you go.
I didn't know that.
I didn't either. So
That's
just
kind of
barely.
cool.
Yeah, so and he's the last one. Yeah, he's the only one that survived. We do see more when there's flashbacks. We kind of see their role a little bit, how they work. But at this point, he's the last one. And someone said his name?
Samashta?
Yeah, I think it's Samashta.
Okay,
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
cool.
I will look it up, but I'm pretty sure. And I think he says it in the next portion of the book.
Next chapter.
Yeah, but I'm pretty sure it's Samashta.
Okay.
Yeah, Sameshta.
Sameshta.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And he's got a big ol'... And does it show what happened anywhere, or does it say in the TV series? It seems like somewhere it said where he got his, like, the crack from.
I don't know. I just remember reading about it. Like he had it, like part of his face was like dead.
Mm-hmm. And it affected his memories.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's what I was going to... Some of his memories are gone.
Yeah, because he sees Rand,
Right.
and he's like, oh, like, or, what does he call him? Son of the dragon,
Son of the... I think it's something like that, yeah.
Yeah, and something the other. I guess I could look it up. I'm a terrible reader, I guess. And then he's like, I don't know what you're talking about. He's like, oh, did I forget? I guess I forgot. And then just moves on. But it's actually a very important part of the book.
Mm-hmm.
And then they ask about, take us the eye of the world, and he's like, oh, I'll never forget that part. Yeah, so he's aware he's forgot stuff.
Yeah.
Like that something's happened to him. But
Right.
I don't think we ever find what. And I wonder how, like, if that was on purpose or what.
But I mean, he recognizes a lot of them, right? So Child of the Dragon, that's what he calls them.
Child of the Dragon, yeah.
Right. And then Perrin, he says Wolf Brother, right?
Yeah,
It's like, we had one of those for a while.
Right.
And it sounded like he was alive during the Age of Legends. And if there hasn't been a Wolf Brother for a while, there wasn't one, or if any, during the Age of Legends either.
Or at the beginning of the Age, because Age of Legends was like 3,800 years longer, maybe more. I can't remember. I think somewhere it says it, but they existed at some point, obviously.
Yeah. So they did see, like you mentioned, they stopped for the night, and they camped near the Thousand Lakes and Seven Towers, and right outside of Malkir. So they see that, the ruins of it, and
that's right. Yeah,
this is where Nynaeve and Lan talk, kind of have their talk about she doesn't want to live without him type discussion, and it's like, well, I can't. I'm a warder, and she's like, well, maybe I could go to the tower and you could be my warder at some point. And so they start talking about that, and he ultimately refuses her and says, I can't. It's not going to happen. And she gets sad, and there's this part where Egwene comes to comfort Nynaeve, and Rand's kind of listening in the whole time, and he's like, and he says something to the effect of, man, women, they just know how to read men's minds or something.
Right.
He says, women are all Aes Sedai. All women are Aes Sedai or something like that.
Yeah, I read that part. I kind of giggled myself.
Yeah.
But, and here in this camp, at some point, Nynaeve says, I'm going to go to the tower and I'm going to learn to be an Aes Sedai. And that's the first time we hear that, where she's like, because before she was always against Moraine and doesn't want to, she's just there for the group, the people from Emmons Field. And then she changes her mind. She's going to go and be there for Egwene while she's there training as well.
You know what I kind of got? I was thinking about this as I was reading this. Because Moraine is supposed to be training these girls, Egwene.
Right.
And I feel like of everybody that Moraine trained, Nynaeve got the most out of it. Even though she was pissed off and she was like, I'm going to be controlled just to piss her off. Like, nobody else is like that. Nobody else got that calmness. Egwene doesn't. Elaine doesn't. Right? None of them get that except Nynaeve. Like, she contorts herself personally the most like an Aes Sedai than all of them. And I feel like it's 100% through this. Yeah. So I feel like why she's trying to be defiant, like the whole time Moraine's like, you're learning. You know what I mean? Like, I'm like, yeah, that's kind of like low-cast smart. You know, like she's the only one that got it, and she totally just got it because she was trying to prove a point.
Yeah. That's a good notice. I hadn't caught that either. So, anything else? Oh, this is where we see Moraine. She like casts this weave where it covers the group, and they become invisible if they go inside that like umbrella weave.
Oh yeah,
umbrella weave. Where she says, "Oh, I just redirected the light," and that's how it works. Because Rand's out there doing something with the horses, and he turns around and like he doesn't see anybody. He's like, "What happened? Where'd everybody go?"
Right.
And then he heard someone talking, and so he walked into it. And so it's kind of a cool camouflage effect. I don't think we really see again, do we?
Well, I mean, really, if you think about it, that's like a simplistic version of the Face of Mirrors.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Really what it is. I mean, it's just, they bend light around it as opposed to make it actually see something. But I feel like that's, like if someone played with that enough, they would have finally gotten to the point where they could do it.
Yeah. Because it's kind of like the cloak of invisibility in Harry Potter, right?
Yeah.
You can do a lot of stuff with that little weave. Go all kinds of places. So anyway, I think that's. And then they leave the next day and head up to find the Green Man.
Yep. And then they find him, right?
Yeah.
And
right.
Last chapter, read 49. They find him, and
they're getting chased by the worms.
Yeah.
Yep. The worms.
And Matt's like, "Why are we afraid of worms?"
These are bad worms.
These are not any worms, right? There are USs, and and so they get there, and then
WUS.
Yeah.
Wusses.
Right.
And so
the worst wuss you'll ever meet.
So anyways, they get there, and Green Man, remembers Moraine. And I think it was cool. Even he recognizes, like, hey, you should not be here a second time. How the heck are you here?
Right.
And then she just straight out says it. Because we have a lot of need. Like, the world has a lot of need. We need the eye of the world.
Yeah. And that's interesting, because then it puts the responsibility of, like, he doesn't choose to reveal himself to Moraine, Because he's like surprised, right? Like, why are you here? So what's in control of that need? Like recognizing the need, allowing them to find the Green Man. That's something I never thought of before.
Yeah, and the amount of thought or powerful of a, Aes Sedai weave to make that so, right? I mean, you're not just, saying, here's a Tangreal, you need to walk to the right time, turn around 3 times, and then shoot your bullet in the air.
Yeah.
If you know the movie, then you rock. Don't shoot straight. Anyway, but you get what I'm saying, like, and then he'll appear. It's literally like, if these people have the right amount of need for the right types of things, they'll find it. Like, that is an amazing feat of power. And that.
What do you think's behind that power? Is it an Aes Sedai thing, or
it's got to be, right? Because Aes Sedai created the Eye of the World. They created it and then had Samash to watch it. But I want to talk about this, but I can't because it'll ruin the next one. I'll save it.
Okay,
but
I'll get into it next time.
But it's got to be something with power, because it has nothing to do with a Turing Grail, right?
Yeah.
No, I mean, and I think the reason it appears, I mean, is I feel like it's less of a tangible thing that somebody's doing with the power, and more of a combination between a Rand's effect as a Taviran, as well as his association with the power, right?
That's a good point.
And so I think it appears when Rand's desperation gets to its peak, right, and then it's there.
Yeah, because they're getting chased by the worms. There's
Exactly.
like a whole pack of them chasing them. They're in
Things are getting bad, and
big danger. Yeah. Okay.
And so I wonder if that even plays a role of pulling Moraine into it as well, right? That the whole idea of a Taviran, as well as just Rand's unrealized but massive power in saidin, right? Kind of warps the pattern.
Oh yeah. I'm pretty sure that played into it as well. Okay, good stuff. All right. Anything else for these chapters? Before we wrap, anything else you guys want to bring up that we haven't talked about already? Or
no, I mean, pretty solid chapters. A lot of build up to what's coming.
Yep,
that's for sure.
Yeah. So the next 5 chapters are the end of the book. So the final battle, basically. A lot of great stuff. All these questions are answered. Well, not all of them, but we get a lot of answered questions about what the Eye of the World is and why they need to go there and what happens after. And we'll be talking about some Forsaken. So far, we've only met Balzaman here and there in the dream world. We'll meet a couple more in the next couple chapters.
Yeah, 2 more.
2 more.
2 more. So interesting story. It's a lot of cool stuff coming up.
Yeah. Yep. So we'll talk about those chapters, and then we'll just kind of give our thoughts about the book as a whole, what we thought, what we liked, who our favorite characters are, what we didn't like about it, all that stuff. And then we'll be done with book 1, and we'll move into book 2 after that. So thanks, guys, for joining us here on the 4th Taviran, and please subscribe to our podcast. Click on the subscribe button right below us, and like the video if you do. Comment on it. Let us know if you think our theories are correct. If we missed anything, let us know. We'll engage with you online, and we're grateful that you guys have listened or watched, and we look forward to talking more about the Eye of the World and wrapping this story up. So we want to thank you guys for joining us, and may you find water and shade.
See you guys.
Thanks. We'll see you.